good. I'm making that assumption. We're using Zoom, as you know. Couple of things. Click on the old chat bar, because that can come up. And if anybody's got any questions, issues, thoughts, anything, stick it on the chat bar, and we like to keep that as a record as well of people. And those records can be shared with everybody. We're also going to record this, and again, we will send everybody the recording of this, so if it's useful for other people, because I think it will be, hopefully, with the housing presentation. I don't think I'm going to say more than that. We'll just carry on. What I suppose I would say, what we tried to do, people in our Thrive campaign, we're trying to connect up with people in Stoke who really love Stoke and want to do something for young people, and we'll boil it down that way. And we started this a couple of years ago with a view of just trying to get support for young people and support for via the YMCA. What you're going to get through today is, by the end of this, what we decided to do on a kind of workshop is be blessed by bringing in some external speakers that could talk about specific issues. We started this last time, and we were thankful for Begbie's trainer that did a bit about the economy that was a bit challenging, I have to say, and who actually knows. And today, we're welcoming Hanley Economic and Tinsdills, who have been really kind and supportive to us. Great people, great relationships, just people who love Stoke like us, really, aren't you? When you boil it down, we all want a thriving city, don't we? We all want a thriving place, and a place that we are proud Stokies, and we want to be more than that, don't we? And I keep saying to the new MPs, level up then, go on then, let's level up then, wonder what that looks like. But we do need that, let's be honest. So we're really thankful for that support. And today we're going to do a presentation about the current housing situation. YMCA, certainly for most of its time, has often provided accommodation across its local association. Some don't, but most do. Certainly North Staff's YMCA was birthed, and its kind of anchor tenant for anchor product has been housing for young people. And as you know, you've come to this campus now, that we believe that there's not a lot of difference between rich and poor other than life chances. We don't think rich people are weird or poor people are weird. We just think people are people, and some people are given a better chance than other people. And our job really is to attempt to equalise those life chances. And in some senses, give young people the freedom to thrive. You know, we don't want to, give load of people with load of therapy and counselling and all this kind of stuff that kind of marginalises people. We get people jobs, we get people housing, and yes, COVID has challenged some of that, obviously, but not in terms of housing. I mean, in terms of housing, and I'm going to hand over now, we're running more or less 100% occupancy in all of our accommodation. So from a kids, I mean, this is a bit scary, but 8,000 under 25s have signed on to universal credit since COVID in Stoke-on-Trent. That's before furlough finishes. So on the one hand, we want to be buoyant and we want to be thriving. On the other hand, we recognise that there is a bit of a challenge coming in the context of young people, particularly. Young people were probably, well, statistically worse off in the context of austerity in the last 10 years. And I'd be great to talk to, how do young people get access to the mortgage market and the accommodation market? And I think we've got a great, I would say that because I'm a customer, we've got a great local business, lots of great local businesses, Hanley Economic, who are totally and utterly committed to the housing market here. We've got a great partner in Tinsdills, I always get that wrong, in Zoe, who's I'm gonna hand over now to look at this presentation, because the commercial housing market and domestic housing market seems to be on the up, doesn't it? And on that, I shall hand over.
Okay, so just to introduce kind of our input into this presentation, obviously Tinsdills and YMCA have met at a number of events, and we thought it would be a good idea to do a joint presentation around the Thrive initiative with a view to providing local services to local residents. So Jane and I are on board to kind of talk you through the processes and what's involved in obtaining a mortgage and looking at getting you on the property ladder. So that's our involvement at the beginning. So I think if we share our screen and start the presentation. So hopefully you can all see that obviously there's me and Jane, and I think Jane's going to start us off with the first couple of slides.
Okay then. So the house buying process is, first of all, you need to save up for a deposit towards the purchase price. Now, your deposit generally tends to be between 5 and 10% of the actual purchase price that you will need to put down. Now, there are various ways of being able to raise that deposit. So you can either save up yourselves, or you can ask an immediate family member if they would be willing to gift you that deposit towards the purchase. Okay, if that is the case, they would have to sign a declaration to say that they won't request that money back from you at some point in the future. Now, there are also some savings accounts that we offer along with other banks and building societies that will help you towards your house buying process, which pays you a slightly higher rate of interest and also offers you the benefits of free fees. So therefore, that gives you a little bit towards your application fees or your valuation fees. So your initial step really would be to book an appointment with one of our mortgage advisors so that you could actually work out what kind of deposit you'd need, how much you can borrow based upon your income and your expected expenditure. Okay, if you'd like to move on to the next slide, please. So once you've had your initial appointment with a mortgage advisor and you've got an idea as to how much you can borrow, you can then start looking at houses. Okay, and once you've found a house that you think is suitable, you'll then need to put in an offer. So you will make an offer to the estate agent that's selling the property and agree the price with the vendor or the seller. Okay. At that point, once the offer has been accepted, you'll then need to do your mortgage application. So at that point, we would confirm the amount that we're looking to lend to you, how much deposit you've got. We would get some information from you with regards to bank statements and proof of income, and we would then start the house buying process. If you'd like to move on to the next slide. So the type of mortgage that we offer would depend on the deposit that you're putting down. Obviously, the higher the deposit, the better the rate that you would be able to get on the mortgage deal. Okay, so it's not imperative that you have a big deposit. The minimum deposit that we would expect would be a 5% deposit. So it is still feasible for people who haven't got a huge deposit or haven't got family members who would be willing to give them money towards that deposit. So once you've done your mortgage application, we'll then instruct the valuer to go out to the property and do a valuation. That will then start the mortgage process. And if you'd like to move on to the next slide, please. That's when you would contact Tinsdills to make arrangements to do the conveyancing. So if you'd like to pick up there, Zoe, please.
I will do, thanks Jane. So once you've found your dream home then, the next step is to find a solicitor to undertake the conveyancing for you. So when you call Tinsdills for a quote, you'll initially speak with our client service advisors, who are our dedicated team that provide all of our quotes for residential conveyancing. They'll ask you a series of questions with a view to obtaining as much information as possible to assist in producing the most accurate quote for you. For example, whether the property is freehold or leasehold, whether you're buying with a mortgage or a cash buyer, whether you require full searches or not at all. So once you've accepted our quote and instructed me to act on your behalf, you'll need to notify the estate agent so they can issue you with a memorandum of sale. The memo of sale contains details of both seller and buyer, the solicitor acting for each party, and the price that you've agreed. In the case of a new build, the developer's solicitor will send us a copy of your reservation form, which will include details of the price agreed, any incentives being provided to you by the developer, such as an upgraded kitchen or a flooring package, along with any details of any reservation fee that you've paid, which will be deducted from the purchase price on completion. It's also really important to note here that developers usually impose an exchange deadline on the reservation form, which is typically 28 days from the date that you've agreed to purchase that property. And if we fail to exchange contracts within this period, the developer is entitled to withdraw any incentives agreed and also place that plot back on the market for sale. Not a lot of people are aware of that. They don't particularly tend to notify you of that at the sales office. So it's always important that you kind of look for the small print. So once you've accepted our quote, we'll send you out a client care pack, which typically includes our terms of business, a purchase questionnaire and a source of funds questionnaire. And we also ask that you provide your ID documents so we can undertake our mandatory ID checks. We will be unable to begin work on your transaction until you've provided those signed terms of business, provided your ID and paid £300 on account for searches. And this is especially important to bear in mind if you're purchasing a new build because of that exchange deadline that I mentioned earlier. So as I mentioned earlier, if you're purchasing a new build property, you will have paid a reservation fee to secure that property. It's particularly important for you to read through the reservation form and understand that if you withdraw from the purchase, then you do indeed forfeit that fee. The developer will at this stage undertake a credit check and may require evidence that you've secured a mortgage in principle. And if we move on to slide 9, I think this is where Jane's going to pick it back up.
Yes, so there are different types of scheme available. There's a Help to Buy scheme, which is a government-backed scheme, where they will give you a loan towards so much of the purchase price. However, in the future, you will need to start paying that back, and it's normally after 5 years. Another option, if you've not got the affordability to buy the house outright, or you've not got enough deposit to buy the house outright, is shared ownership. And this is where you would actually buy a share of the property initially, and then you would have to pay rent on the remaining ownership of the property to a housing association. Then you can actually purchase further shares in the ownership of the property as you've got more income, or as you've got a bigger deposit to put towards buying those extra shares. What you have to bear in mind though is whenever you purchase those extra shares, there will be additional costs to pay, of which will be the solicitor's costs and also valuation fees, and the housing association may also have costs to pay. So you just need to be aware of that there will be additional costs. However, what you've got to bear in mind is those additional costs might help your rent that you're paying to the shared ownership company at that point would obviously reduce. So at the end of the day, you're paying more towards your mortgage payments, which ultimately will mean that you will own that property at a sooner time than you would if you continue renting it on the percentage that you're paying rent on. Would you like to move to the next slide, please?
Okay, so coming back to me then. So at this point, we'd usually receive a draft contract pack and supporting documents from the seller's solicitor. I'll then review the contract and check that it doesn't contain any onerous conditions on you as the buyer. I'll also review the title deeds for the property, and this can be in 2 different formats depending on whether the property is registered or unregistered. If the property is registered, the seller's solicitor will have provided what we call office copy entries and a title plan, which is essentially the shorthand version of the title deeds, if you like. All of the information in this instance is stored electronically at the land registry, and any pertinent information relating to the property is contained in those office copy entries. If the property is unregistered, the seller's solicitor would have provided copies of all the old original title deeds for review. And the type of information that I'm looking for here is whether the property is subject to any rights of way, shared services with neighbouring properties, or anything that might affect your use or enjoyment of the property. The seller's solicitor will also have provided a completed property information form and a fittings and contents form, which will contain useful information as to what, if any, alterations or extensions have been made to the property, whether it benefits from central heating, has double glazing, etc. And once I've reviewed all of that information provided by the seller's solicitors, I'll raise any inquiries as necessary and then report to you once I have those replies.
Yes, so whilst your mortgage application is going through, you will have the opportunity to meet with one of our professional financial advisors to discuss any mortgage protection requirements that you might have. So that would be covering the event of death or critical illness, any income protection requirements, and any family income benefit requirements, because at the end of the day, we would want to ensure that once you buy that house, you can stay in that whatever happens going forward. We can also provide you with a quote for your buildings and contents insurance, which will ensure that you've got the relevant cover in place once you're ready to move in. And what we will do when we issue the mortgage offer, so when all of the underwriting is done, we've had the valuation back, we've had any references that might be required from your employer, and all the credit checks have been carried out, we would issue the mortgage offer, which is valid for 3 months. Now, from that time, that's when the solicitor will be carrying out all of their inquiries in the background and liaising with the vendor's solicitor so that we can arrange a mutual completion date as and when that's required.
I was just going to say, it's also worth noting at this point that I, as your legal advisor, don't normally chase for a copy of the valuation report. If your mortgage lender produces that report for me, they usually send it along with the mortgage offer. You might also want to consider whether it's pertinent to obtain your own survey in the form of a home buyer's report. If you do, if you can send that across to me, I'll then review the comments and cross-reference the information. With that being provided by the selling agent and the solicitors acting for the seller, and then I'll raise any additional inquiries that I deem necessary. So once I've reviewed the title, I'll also apply for your searches. If you're buying a property with the assistance of a mortgage, then these searches will be mandatory. If you are lucky enough to be able to buy a property outright, these searches can still be applied for but are not necessary. If this is the case, then you'll be deemed to have purchased the property subject to anything that might have been revealed in those search results because it's public data. In terms of what searches we usually apply for, these typically include a local authority search, a water and drainage, coal mining if the property is located in Staffordshire or any other coal mining area, and finally an environmental search. These search results provide really useful information in relation to the property and the surrounding area. The search results can include information such as whether the property is subject to any tree preservation orders, whether there are any disused mine shafts within the vicinity of the property, and whether there are any environmental constraints that you should be aware of. If any adverse entries are revealed, I would then raise inquiries with the seller's solicitor in order to obtain further information for you. And when we receive a copy of your mortgage offer, we'll check the offer for any special conditions that we might need to comply with, and then potentially have to report any third-party gifted funds from parents or relatives that Jane talked about earlier on. We'll look at drafting a completion statement for you, which will include details of our legal fees and disbursements, along with any other charges that might apply. Quite often with a new build property, the developer solicitor will charge a number of additional fees that might not be explained to you when you reserve the property. Typically, this can include a document fee for the solicitor collating and sending over all the documents, or an engrossment fee, which is simply a charge for having them arrange for the documents to be signed by the developer. So once we've completed our investigations, we'll prepare a purchase report for you. which will pull together all of the results of our findings and break down the information into readable and easy to understand chunks. Pre-COVID, we would have sent you the purchase report and completion statement and would have asked you to make an appointment to attend the office to see me, to run through the documents and to sign the contract, transfer deed and mortgage deed. Since the easing of lockdown, although we are fully operational at each of our offices now, we are limiting client contacts. So at the moment, we're sending out the documents in the post for signature and then arranging Zoom meetings to run through the documents. This gives you, the client, an opportunity to ask any questions or for us to explain the moving procedures if this is your first conveyancing experience. Once we've received all the signed documents from you, we'll look at setting exchange and completion dates. For new build properties, exchange is normally done on notice, which means that we'll exchange to make the transaction legally binding. But if the property isn't yet structurally complete, we'll wait to be served with notice from the developer's solicitor once it is structurally complete, along with a copy of the structural guarantee. If the property isn't a new build, then contracts will be exchanged with a fixed completion date, which is usually anywhere between 1 and 2 weeks later, but we're flexible on this. Deposit monies are usually held to order, which means that we'll hold the 10% deposit to the seller's order. So if the buyer, as you were to withdraw following exchange, we would still be bound to send on the deposit monies for the seller to retain. If the property is a new build, the developer normally expects us to transfer deposit monies on exchange with the balance of purchase monies to be sent on completion. With a new build property, it's important to remember to undertake a pre-completion inspection of the property, during which you would make a snagging list of any issues that need to be resolved by the builder. It's normal practice to include a clause in the contract that the developer is obliged to address any snagging with you within a reasonable period from completion. At around the same time of exchange, we'll request your mortgage funds to arrive with us the day before completion. And if you have a Help to Buy ISA, we'll request your bonus to be sent to us. So this can be used towards the overall purchase price. So finally, we've reached completion day. So on the day of completion, we'll transfer the purchase monies over to the seller's solicitor or developer's solicitor. Once they've confirmed receipt of those funds, the selling agent or site manager will authorise key release. We'll then advise you as to where you can collect the keys from, and then the fun begins of moving in and arranging your furniture. So in the days following completion, I'll arrange for the payment of stamp duty, if that's applicable, and I'll also make an application to the Land Registry to register you as the new owner. Land Registry can take anywhere from 6 weeks to 6 months to register the relevant details, but rest assured you are the legal owner from the day of completion. And once the title has been updated, we'll send you a copy of the details for your safekeeping. That's it. So I appreciate that was a bit of a whistle-stop tour as to the conveyancing process, but if you've got any questions, then I'd be happy to answer them now, or you can contact me separately following the presentation. So I think Danny might come back in and just touch on a few points.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. That's very helpful. Oh, are you back in? I mean, it's been quite interesting in, charities and social housing that often I've found with housing associations, there's this assumption that the only move on option for people is through social housing. And that kind of limits stuff, because as we know, I would like more social housing built. I think that we know there's a bit of a housing shortage across the whole country, don't we? But what we've tried to do in the YMCA in the past few years, we've brought 30 properties in the community ourselves as move on accommodation. But in that, you see, we've decided that often when you're working out within homelessness, and we don't really use those words anymore because they create the kind of prejudice and the perception of street people, and young people aren't that. But what we're discovering is in the accommodation that we're buying, we're helping people to move in, we're getting jobs. 61% of the people that moved out from us were moved into employment, and we brought these properties. And I guess as young people grow their lives, our policy is if individuals wanted to buy those houses, Stokies are quite settlers, aren't they? They want to settle, and that's fine. So actually, whereas 10 years ago, probably house purchase for the young people that we work with would seem to be an impossible thing, we've opened up that, and we've got young people who are working. We got 20 young people into university this year. So we're trying to create much longer term relationships with people, because we know that works, and broaden the options. So, a lot of charities would go, what you're talking about house buying for, your young people can't afford it, but they certainly will be able to afford it as their lives move forward. So I'm thankful for that presentation. I was giggling to myself around when you actually get the keys, you know, the house buying. We've all done it, haven't we? That the kind of, you're buying an house and it's very sort of go to the solicitor, as you've described quite rightly. That's quite a slow process, it feels at the time, doesn't it? You know, how long is it going to take, and conveyancing and surveys and all of that. Then all of a sudden, that mad day when you pick the keys up and somebody's moving into your house, it's just crazy, isn't it? And then we've moved quite a lot because of my wife's situation, trying to find accommodation that's sorted. And I remember selling one house that the new buyers sort of turned up all excited, where we're still in a two and eight, trying to get everything out of the house. And there's me sort of leaving the house, trying to sweep up the final bits of dog hair that I've found under the bed that have been there for the past 10 years. I'm like, it's a great day, isn't it, when you buy that house, really? It's a funny feeling, isn't it? You walk in and it's just a fantastic feeling for people, isn't it? You know, and we want that feeling and opportunity for all young people. You know, why not? Why not? Shouldn't that be the case? And the good thing is in Stoke-on-Trent, you know, and North Staffordshire, that, you know, we do have some affordable houses, don't we? You know, it is possible within the bandwidth of people's earnings. So thanks for that. I was very excited. It took me back to reminiscing quite a lot, Jane, of sitting in your office in Biddulph, filling in the forms with my pen.
Yes, that's it. You don't do any of that anymore.
No. I think I was one of the last people to apply for a mortgage with a quill and a pen at that point. Look, this is probably 12 years ago. So your new chief exec's kind of connected up your systems, hasn't he, really, now?
Oh, yes.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you, Jane. Any other questions before I move on? We've discovered through Joelle in our text that we've got 10 people missing, so we'll go and find them and growl at them afterwards, because I think they've missed out on something. As Joelle says, calm your jets, Danny. We'll put it out on video and on YouTube, and people might watch it, so that's good. So it's not all the comments I was going to make is work. I guess I've made them, but working with young people since 2003, I think it's just about providing real opportunities for people, and not, as I've said, not the charity itself constraining young people to their world, you know, which is back to my comment about housing associations and social housing. You know, there is a possibility, and that's what we've got to do. And I've found lots of part of the Thrive network is to unlock kindness and unlock opportunity for people. And as I've said, unlock life chances for people. And, you know, why shouldn't young people have these fantastic experiences? And I'm going to hand over to Mel now, who's going to give you some, you know, we've had presentations, you've had a chief exec talking away. Let's listen to Mel, who's experienced some of this stuff for real and is now working as activity worker for us. She's just qualified as a teacher, haven't you, Mel? And I'll let Mel tell her story rather than me.
Hello, guys.
I
hope. Yeah. So I've been working at the moment with the YMCA for about 5 years. So 2015, I came here, fresh out of uni. I had a lot of family breakdown when I was younger. So I weren't able to like go and live with my family, you know, they haven't got a lot of money. So I'm not one of them people that can go and ask, like you said in the first slide, go and ask a family member, can I borrow, you know, have you got 10 grand so I can go put a deposit down on a house? So as a young person, looking to get on the property ladder, you know, it is hard. Especially in this day and age, you know, if you're on a low income. So yeah, at the moment I'm living in one of the YMCA properties, one of the 20 houses within a mile and a half of the YMCA, which is in Stoke-on-Trent, and it is cheap, you know, it's cheaper rent, it's affordable. They don't ask you for a massive deposit like some of these, you know, like some of these houses in Stoke. And I am looking to buy now, and you know, it's difficult, like I say, if you haven't got loads of money and you try and save. And you know, coming out of uni, I couldn't get a job straight away. Everyone wants experience, and how do you get experience if no one will give you a chance? And you know, I worked at pottery factory, I've done all sorts, and I'm now teaching art and design with the young people who live here. So me, like, when I used to well, I went in any housing, so I first came here in 2015. I first came here before I got into uni, and they helped me, you know, get myself sorted, find a college course I wanted to do, and from that, you know, now I'm able to help other people do that, help them find employment and try and find, you know, what they're good at, and how we can give other people these chances and opportunities. But yeah, you know, it is difficult, but look, I'm dead lucky because I've got the chance now to help other people. But I'm in a secure job now, and I've managed to be able to save up. And last year I opened up, you know, the Help to Buy scheme, which you were on about. So last year it was like the last chance that people could open that. So I opened one of them, which, you know, the government will help you with a few pennies towards that. So it's about like saving and looking forward to the future. And I know that in the YMCA houses, so I've been through the customer journey. I lived in the tower and then the flats, and now I'm in one of the houses renting. But you know, all your money goes into your rent, and then like you've got nothing to show for it at the end of the day. So now it is time start saving and look forward to the future. But after 5 years, I think these community houses, which YMCA provide, you can actually buy them. So I think that's great. You know, with for people who are on low income and, you know, can't afford, or haven't got, like say, haven't got family, you can go and say, oh, you know, give us some money. You know, it's hard, it is difficult. So
thanks, Mel. I was just going to ask you, if you don't mind me being a little bit nosy, your fantastic aspiration of working in the school as an art teacher that kicked you out. Just tell them that story, just quick, because I think it's ace.
Yeah, so when I was 15, I was at school, and I got in with the wrong crowd, and I was a bit naughty, you know. And they told me I'd never do nothing with my life, and I'll never achieve anything, you know. And I lost faith. And then my parents, well, my mum and dad like split up, you know, family breakdown, so I had nowhere to go. So I come here to the YM, and my support work, you know, they supported me, helped me get into college, like Leek College. So I went back and studied art and design, and then last year I applied to go and do a PGCE and support the students at the college with their art and design journey, and now I'm just giving back.
Right, brilliant. Mel said to me, yeah, she wants to go back and be the art teacher in the school that kicked her out. I thought that was just absolutely brilliant journey. Life is often a cyclical journey, isn't it? Things come back round the mountain, don't they? And so thanks, Mel, for sharing that. You know, it's really good. And as she says, it sounds like Mel wants to make me an offer I can't refuse for her house she lives in, doesn't it, Duck? In a couple of years now, is it? Something like that.
Yeah, I've got a lot more to save yet, but you know, we're on the way, aren't we?
You'll be all right, mate. You'll be all right. Yeah. Thanks, Mel. I think the one thing I'd say is we know we want to take a long-term journey with the young people that we're trying to serve, and we know, you know, we've kind of got a bit of a background thing that, you know, a young person comes to us at 16. Why couldn't they be owning a property that the YMCA is facilitated by the time they're 25? What's the problem with that? You know, why? And when they're working in that property, they then begin, as Mel says, and thank you for that, they begin to give back. We believe every single person has got a gift and a talent that can be unlocked and can be deployed to help other people. And we're very much sort of over the past few years, I suppose, since we've known each other more and more, really start acting as a kind of community and a movement rather than a kind of top-down charity. We believe everybody's gifted and talented and everybody can thrive given the opportunity. We only thrive because of the people that support around us, don't we? Everybody on this call thrives because of the support they receive. Might be from your wife, might be from your husband. It's certainly from your parents, you know, and that's all we're trying to do in the YMCA is build this community and rebuild family support for people, you know. I know I'm getting old because I found out the other week that I often used to get called kids' dad, my YMCA dad. I'm beginning to get called, oh, you're the YMCA granddad, which means I obviously am close to retirement, doesn't it? Shut up, David Williams, nodding your head. There will be an appraisal at one point for my director of business, and we shall raise that personal issue, David. Cheeky man, isn't he? Grandad Dan, can you believe it? I've got a couple of questions, and then I'm going to move on to kind of the kind of ask bit, really, but you know this anyway. Graham asked, do you want to ask your question, Graham, and then let's, rather than me answering it, and then we can, rather than me voicing it.
Sure, yeah. I was just wondering, how do young people get access to, you know, shared ownership seems to me like a really good way for a young person on low income to start on their housing journey, and or at least on their ownership journey. But you know, I personally wouldn't know where to start. How does a young person know where to start? You know, should they get in touch with the housing trust directly, or is there some kind of central, you know, council or government department that can help them?
Shared ownership is often coming out of a route around housing associations and a hybrid model around social housing, as you know. Do you do any shared ownership schemes, Jane, at Hanley Economic now? Oh, you're on mute, lovely. That's the thing, I'm going to get a hat like one of them crazy Trump people, a magma hat, but rather than a you're on mute hat. Boom.
Yes, we do actually do shared ownership. There is a register of shared ownership companies that are regulated, and it has to be one of the regulated shared ownership companies. If you just Google it, that will tell you the different shared ownership associations around the country, and it's just a case of getting in touch with that shared ownership, whether it's a housing association, whether it is local council, local government who offer the shared ownership schemes, and it's just really finding one in the area where you want to buy.
Okay, I mean, most of the shared housing schemes or the model comes out of social housing, Graham, and it's an attempt and a hybrid. There's quite a number around here. I had some friends who, I think it was at the time, at Coventry Churches, that's how old I am, property. So I think people can apply directly to housing associations, and they would all have shared ownership type schemes, whether that's a shared equity scheme or whether that's a shared ownership between different people. That always gets a bit tricky, doesn't it, sometimes? So, and we've seen some dodgy shared ownership schemes with respect in the private sector that people can get caught in something that they have to be very, very careful that they sign. So some of the leaseholder stuff that has elements of shared equity I probably think to be avoided, because there's those ground rent issues and things such as that. I think customers just want a simple deal, don't they, really? You know, what do I have to pay? How much do I have to pay it? And when do I have to pay it? And how much have I got?
Yeah.
But there is availability, but there is, I mean, that you could, from an economic poverty sort of income point of view, you could criticise the Help to Buy scheme, because it didn't really affect anybody who couldn't afford accommodation, you know, and that benefit was great for those people who could. And I guess I'm a bit more of a, you know, how do you spread the benefits and create some level of equality? And I wonder whether there's something, what we're trying to do is, rather than moving people around all the time, that people don't particularly like moving around. As I say, culturally in Stoke, they're a bit settlers, and I'm not criticising that. So we've got this kind of rent scheme that then can turn into a purchase scheme. And it's not kind of overly formalised, but it's an offer to all young people, as Mel has suggested. That's our scheme. And it goes all the way back for a long relationship with Hanley Economic Building Society, where this idea was first muted, probably with Glenn Hanforth, my chairman, and I, at a meal with the previous chief exec, David, who, let's work. And that partnership was established with Hanley all of those years ago. And I remember that, having a meal with them, thinking, well, we could get some properties to, young people could become customers of Hanley Economic. Why not? And that virtuous circle of Stoke money going to Stoke businesses for Stoke people, is something we like to do. Alistair, you got a question?
Yeah. It just you prompted me with the presentation and your comments there, Danny, about the old issue of having that fighting fund in the first instance, and it just made me think. I mean, I encourage my daughter, because I'm an old, really, to sort of save up for a house, really, and just get it going. But it did make me think, because people expect to sort of aim at renting for a bit, and they expect to sort of aim at a Help to Buy. I just wonder, what encouragement is there to get people to aim for that big juicy 10% and to get a foot on the ladder to actually own a nice freehold house where you're not paying exorbitant service charges and so on and so on. What encouragement is there to go in that direction?
Hiya, Myra, you okay, darling? Nice to see you. I think it's creating a culture where it's normalised, Alistair, rather than some kind of strategy, because you've got to, I think what we can do within the Thrive Network, and my request to all of you with your help is, as well as material help, is it's creating a culture that it's normal. That kind of, am I going to be renting a property all my life, or is there an opportunity for me? And sometimes what we find is, with some of the kind of glue that poverty brings and glues people to the floor, as it were, it's, to use that metaphor, it's unlocking that glue and creating the opportunity that it's normal. Now, Mel might be the head of the game in that. Have we sold one of these properties to a young person yet? No. But I think it's with our kind of intention that says that it can be normalised, that people can have the benefit and the gift of property ownership. Why not? As you say, why shouldn't regular people have that security that often ownership brings, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think there's a question about the actual saving of the deposit kind of thing, and what encouragement is there and focus is there, if any, like on encouraging young people just to get that fund going. Have they got an account set aside for it? £1 a week or whatever. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, we encourage people to. I think people at the start of it, people who are on benefits and then coming off into low-level jobs, there is a bit of a challenge about affordability and how much, if you're on minimum wage, how much can you actually reasonably save on a 20-hour contract that a young person may be, those are issues. But I think what we find is with employment is
minus 50 quid.
And then grow up, and then once they're in that more, that better job, they begin to see that as an aspiration. Often, what we're finding as an outcome for kids that go to university, they hang around with other kids who are from that space, and their discussions around ownership become normalised. So I think there's a kind of Stokey aspiration thing. Do we have a saving scheme? Yes. Do we have a kind of focus on saving for a deposit for a house? But no, you've given me a good idea, so thank you.
So, Danny, we do have a savings account at the Hanley, which is called
There
the
you
Home
go.
Deposit Saver. It's you have to open it with a minimum of £100, and then we would expect you to put in between £100 and £500 each month. That will then give you the bonus of not having to pay any of the fees that you would normally have to pay. So we pay for the valuation fee, we pay for any application fees and any product fees. And the rate of interest on that savings account is way more than you could get on just an ordinary interest savings account, instant access account. We allow you to save in that account for up to 3 years, and at that point we would then expect you to have used the money to purchase a property by then.
Right, right. So how much would people have to save for 3 years to get to a kind of average 5%, do you think, if that's not too magical at this time of day?
It really depends, because it depends on the area that they're buying in, and it depends on the type of property that they're buying. So if they're buying a terraced house, obviously they won't need as big a deposit as
sure.
a detached property, which probably they wouldn't be buying as a first time buyer.
I don't know. I was looking at that crazy program in Los Angeles, those properties in, my daughter had it on, those properties in amazing, you know, those like £20 million. I was up for buying one of them, Jane, I tell you. I went for a charity. So we can do that.
Danny, what was the name of that account again? Sorry.
It's the Home Deposit Saver.
There you go. Right, we'll make a note of that.
It does what it says on a tin, quite literally. You've thought long and hard about that name.
I like that simplicity, Never mind all this marketing slogan, jiggery pokery from PR firms. Straight away, deposits. Buy a house deposit scheme. We like it. Did you want to say something there, Dave? Did I hear you say something?
I was going to make just one comment in terms of the work the staff do around these kind of matters. Though, all the young people that live at the YMCA have what we call personal development coaches. And absolutely, to answer part of your question, one of the key focus areas that we monitor is, you know, if people have got debt levels, if how we can help to get our debt down, how to encourage people to save money. So we do that, and we've got a measurement tool. So the measurement tool that the staff use as part of the work they do with the young people looks quite heavily at finance, because we know they need to be on a stable footing moving forward. So whilst we might not have those kind of direct links at the moment to this home deposit scheme, the work is being done quite extensively with the young people at the YMCA in terms of the work they do on a one-to-one basis with their personal development coaches. And I think Mel would know about that in terms of the work Mel used to do with her personal development coach as well, Danny.
Yeah. Good, thank you. I'm going to move us on to the final bit of the slide, because, you know, we've done well today. We've managed to do it in 50, 60 minutes. Could you post that one up, Joel? And as he begins to post it up, I will explain the scheme. What we've discovered over the past sort of 10 years is to try and create a breadth of different sorts of accommodation that meet the needs of young people where they are at. So at 16, 17, 18, we have, and you've been estranged from family. And that's the biggest reason that young people become homeless. It's family estrangement, it's family breakdown. And what we notice in recent years, that it actually, yes, poverty increases that speed of breakdown, but actually family breakdown is the biggest single issue for young people being estranged from their family. There's some odd statistics post-austerity that are kind of almost a bit of a time bomb waiting. 1 million more under 30s live with their parents than they did before 2010. I don't know about you. I was furloughed with a 24-year-old. By the time furlough ended for him, I wanted to kill him. Love him dearly, but you got a bloke in your house, aren't you, going on your nerves? So I think there's a bit of a time ticking thing, and I think there's a big demand that if we can create more affordable housing, it'll sell. You know, there is that. Now, as part of that process, the campus, we have rooms in the YMCA. Each floor is zoned, so each floor becomes almost an autonomous unit. So by the time you get to the top of the YMCA, you're probably living fairly independently, living for yourself, you're probably working. And then what happens, you generally might move to Grace Crescent, which is the move on we did when we built the campus, 2010, 11, 12. Since then, we've been buying properties as move on for young people, because actually, if we can give people accommodation, affordable accommodation, and get them into employment, it kind of works. It's amazing what money can do to unlock your life, isn't it? Let's be honest. You know, you can have you know, I think a wage is probably more effective than 500 social workers and all kinds of people sorting you out. You know, I don't want to be disrespectful to that, but you know, poverty's hard, and when you got money in your pocket, life opens with choices, doesn't it? Let's be honest. What we're showing now is we've been working up a bid to create more accommodation, and this accommodation here is what we're calling a transitional housing project. And what that means is it is targeted for young people who have just gained employment, and we're going down that road of kind of incentive and information and giving people something to aspire to rather than seeing where they are currently at as it. So creating a journey through different sorts of accommodation that is relevant and appropriate to the person's lifestyle at that time. So this is where we need your help, and you know, we're missing 10 people, so we're going to find them and kill them, but no, we're going to love them to come next time. We're looking for support from businesses and the people of Stoke-on-Trent and beyond for the fit out costs of this building, fit out costs for bedrooms. So we've got everything, well, we're in the middle of this build. I mean, the contractor went bust in COVID, so that's been a bit of a pain in the bottom, but we're just about to reappoint a new contractor. So you'll see this thing emerging over the next 6 to 8 months. It'll provide 46 more units. I think in terms of the COVID stuff and employment stuff, we recognise that there's going to be a bit of a challenging year for young people. So it may open up with young people who are on that journey again, because we recognise 8,000 more young people claiming income support in the last 5 months is going to have a kicker down the employment chain, isn't it? Let's be honest. But this is where we're seeking your help, really. Ultimately, what we're looking for is 18 businesses that can sponsor a room. And we're looking for your help as people on this call to help us sort of market, evangelise, whatever you want to call that offer. That can we get 46 businesses or people to support this build, and as we've said, focus on the young person's home, fitting out that home so they're ready to go. What we do furnish most of our accommodation and the only stuff we don't is if young people don't want that and they're moving into one of the terraces. But largely they do, because part of recognising young people coming from estranged families is they don't have parents with fridges and fit outs and stuff that they can help them. You know, we all did, didn't we? You know, your mum gives you telly or somebody else. So we fit out all the accommodation to a very high standard, because we think, well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So everything is at the highest possible standard that we can do. And on that note, I guess my request to you on the call, who are, you know, friends and partners, is A, could you support it? And B, could you help us to identify other businesses and other people in your hinterlands and markets that we could harass, basically, for want of a better word, to help us to support this. And on that note, I'm going, shut up. I think that'll do it, Joelle, won't it? I guess it's time for any questions really now. Anybody got any comments or questions or anything really?
Danny, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So what springs to mind for me there is that's the kind of thing I could get my team kind of fired up about to
Brilliant.
do a kind of, you know, come up with an activity, you know, like we've done the sleep outs and stuff, and we could do something. Exactly. Yeah. So get people to sponsor us and things like that to raise some money so we can actually contribute to that, and potentially we can get other people involved. So could you give us a nice kind of bite-sized bit of information that we could kind of copy and paste it into some social media or some emails to people and that?
You want an easy sort of almost PR email that describes what we're doing and what the ask is, that members of
Exactly.
staff can go, I see what
Yeah.
you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think Jarell, we'll get a bit of we could kind of mirror some of this morning with a bit of testimony and a bit of film and a bit of architect's drawings and actual drawings, and go, you know, can you come and help? Yes, definitely, we can get that done, can't we, Jarell? Easily.
Yeah, mate, we can, of course.
Brilliant. Yeah,
Okay.
thanks, Graham. That's good of you. We'll have them all wearing Mexican hats like we did with the meal, just for fun.
We need to come up with a theme, don't we? Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions, folks? I think the other thing I suppose we'd like your help with is just, I guess, helping to populate this space. So when we do this again, we can, you know, those 10 people who found it hard to log on, we can make it easy for them to log on. And it's that kind of transactional stuff we want for your help too, you know. So when you're chatting out with your mates and friends, or you want to log on to the YMCA Thrive workshops, they were good fun. They gave us some information, they helped, you know, and we've added bits. So next one we'll do Graham with the home working and stuff like that, and see if we can get a congregation that way. Okay. Any final comments? Because I know people's diaries tick, and I think we've done, aren't we?
Yeah, just a quick one, and it's only a small comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to Hanley Economic, are you opening accounts at the moment? Because a lot of places were shut down for COVID and wouldn't open and wouldn't do this and wouldn't do that and wouldn't do the other. So are you fully doors open and opening accounts and so on at the moment?
Yes, our branches are open from 9 until 2. All apart from Festival Park don't open on a Monday, but Festival Park are open on a Monday from 9 until 2. And all the rest of our branches are open from Tuesday to Saturday, 9 a.m. until 2 p.m. And we are open for business, and we have been all throughout.
Yeah, I'd encourage you there, mate. I'm that old enough to remember buy British in the 70s, so I've always chosen to buy Stoke in the rest of my life. I've had 2 savings accounts, children's savings accounts with my kids that. With Hanley Economic for 20 years, it was great, you know, and then they grew up and spent the money in far too quickly.
Dear.
You know, you're saving the money, aren't you? Oh, this would be nice for your deposit for accommodation, and then you give them the money, don't you? And oh dear.
And then they come back home.
Exactly. Well, I can't get rid of one. I got rid of one. The other one I can't get rid of. Yeah, I'm not giving him any more money. He can whistle. Anyway, thank you very much for your attendance, everybody. Thank you to Zoe, particularly, and to Jane for giving us that presentation and you know, creating that very relevant presentation for us and supporting us as usual. If you can send our love back to our friends at Tinsdills and at Hanley Economic, great. Thanks for coming, everybody else. Thanks, Graham. We'll be in touch with that sort of proposition page for you within the next week. Is that all right, Jarell? We can get that together, can't we?
Yeah, mate, we'll start working on that
Yeah,
today.
Jarell is our communications and super IT person, and on the one hand, he's absolutely fantastic, but on the other hand, he confirms my age that he does all the clever IT stuff that I just, oh, do that, Jarell, will you? Which I do need to chastise myself and get into a learning mode. Thanks for coming. This is recorded. It'll be posted on where's it going to be posted, Jarell?
On our socials via YouTube.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, I'm going to let you go. Is that okay?
Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good day. Thanks, guys.
Bye, Mel.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.